All right, if you're just joining us, we are following the breaking news out of California in Torrance, near Los Angeles. A dramatic standoff is now over after police moved in on two white vans that were near each other. The vans fit a description of a vehicle of interest in connection with last night's deadly mass shooting at a dance studio in Monterey Park. It is still unclear what, if anything, police found inside the two vans, but you could see the officers making their way into the vehicle. One of the vehicles, the one vehicle of interest where there appears to be a suspect or maybe a suspect dead inside on the driver's side of that vehicle. In the meantime, the LA County Sheriff's Department Special Enforcement Bureau tweeted that their SWAT operation for an armed suspect in Torrance has concluded neighborhood safe. The tweet goes on to say, and this is the suspect that police are looking for. They believe he is responsible for shooting and killing 10 people and injuring at least 10 others in Monterey Park. The victims were gathered at a dance studio located in a predominantly Asian American community to celebrate the Lunar New Year. And I want to bring in Jonathan Wackrow, CNN law enforcement analyst, and CNN senior law enforcement analyst Charles Ramsey. You're back, both gentlemen back with us. Thanks so much. Jonathan, what's the next phase of this investigation? I assume that's finding a motive. And does it stand to reason that the other situation that unfolded last night after the mass shooting, the one in Alhambra, where people apparently rustled a firearm away from somebody described as an Asian man, it does seem as though all of this is connected at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. So right now, what we're really seeing in terms of the arc of this investigation is we're entering into a new phase. The tactical element, the imminent threat, seems to have been resolved. We don't have final confirmation on that, but we are starting to see the communication come out from law enforcement that the armed suspect has been mitigated, that threat has been mitigated, and that the community is safe. I would like to see a lot more of that. I'd like to see a lot more of that through different channels and actually different languages, really to reassure the public. But we're starting to see that. And what the phase that we're moving into is, the investigative phase, and it's tying in together, trying to understand the motive, of this attacker. Why was this location chosen? Was this, this targeted act of violence? Was it in some response to some sort of grievance with an individual? What were the factors that led this individual to, commit this crime at that location and the secondary site, right? So is this something that they went into that first location, didn't see the target that they were looking for, and moved on to the next location again? All of that is going to be part of the investigative process. And what they're going to do in that investigative process is, once they identify positively who this individual is, they're going to start looking at friends, family, interviewing them, trying to understand, was there something, what was the motivation behind this act? They'll look at, all of the digital trace evidence that they possibly can. Did this person, belong to some sort of group? Did he telegraph any type of grievance or concern that would have led to, this act? Again, this is that next phase of the investigations. Things are going to slow down a little bit. They're going to be more methodical. We saw the tactical elements, occurring. Again, we're not more than 24 hours, from the incident. So this is where investigators are going to start taking the items of evidentiary value from the crime scene, piecing it together with other elements, again, to try to answer the question, why?
Exactly. And Chief Ramsey, let me turn to you next, because one of the questions that a lot of folks are going to have in the hours and days to come is, what led to this mass shooting that occurred last night? We just don't have very much clarity in terms of that information. You were saying earlier this afternoon, it's perfectly understandable why the LA County Sheriff was keeping his cards close to the vest. But don't you think, as the hours go on this evening, that this community is going to need some more information about what is going on, in particular, whether or not this person is going to be positively identified as the suspect in the Monterey Park shooting, the person who is slumped over the wheel, we believe to be slumped over the wheel of that white cargo van there in Torrance?
Yeah, I think the next press conference, you'll get a lot more information that you had than you got before. In fact, if this is in fact the person who is the suspect, then there's no question that there'll be a lot more information, but that doesn't mean they'll have a motive yet. I mean, that's part of what they're doing now in this phase of the investigation. They searched that van. Did he have any writings in there? When they interview family, friends, Was there some kind of beef or issue that he had moving forward for whatever reason that would lead him to do something like this? Does he have a social media footprint? Now, he's an older guy. Maybe he doesn't really, use social media. I don't know. But that's part of the investigation now, is to try to find out the why. Why would someone do something like this? Is there a connection to the Lunar New Year, or is this something totally separate from that caused him to take that particular action? So I think we'll find out more at the next press conference. Don't be disappointed if they have not yet zeroed in on a motive. Again, the police cannot speculate. I mean, we can do it. Media can do it. Those like John and I, we can speculate and so forth. But when you're running an investigation, it's based on fact. And until you have those facts, then you shouldn't be putting out any information that is not 100% accurate. So, I'm optimistic that we'll find out more, but how much more, I don't know.
Right. And Jonathan, I mean, even when the sheriff was asked, is this the suspect, or I think he may have even just volunteered that, is this a suspect? Possibly, I think is the way he described it earlier this afternoon. So he has been, Sheriff Luna has been keeping this very close to vest.
Yeah. Listen, if he said yes, guess what? There's 500 follow-up questions to that, right? So, I understand that, law enforcement is trying to, keep this very compartmentalized and only release the facts. As Chief Ramsey said, they have to, right? Because, and also this is an ongoing investigation. We still don't know some big questions around how were these weapons obtained? How many weapons are there? Is there anybody else involved in this? So those things are still not answered. And again, if law enforcement speculates in any way, it could really jeopardize the totality of the investigation. So we'll wait to hear what they say in the next briefing. But again, it's going to be all fact driven.
And Chief Ramsey, I mean, for the Sheriff's Department to put out a tweet that says the standoff is over, the neighborhood is safe, I mean, that is a very clear indication that, and there's the tweet right there. We have it up on screen right there. The operation for an armed suspect in Torrance has concluded, neighborhood safe. I guess that doesn't tell us everything, but they're not going to willy-nilly put out a tweet like that in a cavalier fashion unless they are absolutely certain that they have the situation at least in hand there in Torrance.
Well, I mean, that's what I would think. But I mean, you're talking about Torrance. Again, that's 30 miles away from where the actual mass shooting took place. Obviously, the community in Torrance, once they see SWAT vehicles zeroing in on a van and so forth, there's a lot of concern. So they want to let those folks know that, that particular situation has been resolved. Now, it doesn't go far enough to say that it's also resolve the Monterey Park mass shooting. But I think one could assume that since they put that out, that they're pretty comfortable at this point in time, even though they're not 100% verified yet, that this is an individual that they were looking for initially. But again, that's me speculating that that's it. We'll find out more when Sheriff Luna has his next press conference. And hopefully he can answer that particular question.